Coming up on Arirang TV, South Korea hits back at Japan in their trade conflict, saying it's taking Japan off its own list of countries that get preferential treatment. Japan had already taken even harsher measures against Korea, but Seoul says it's still open to talks. President Moon Jae-in urges Koreans to take a deep breath and not be emotional about the situation with Japan. A spirit of peace, he says, will create a better future for both countries. And to cool down Korea's overheated housing market, the Moon administration announces a new price ceiling for apartment complexes to clamp down on speculation, especially in some parts of Seoul. It's 4:00 p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for tuning in to our afternoon newscast. I'm Devin Whiting. South Koreans cannot help but be sensitive about Japan's retaliatory measures on trade, especially with the scars from the colonial past. But President Moon Jae-in says an emotional approach to the issue should be avoided. Park Ki-jun has the details.
President Moon Jae-in says that because of the great pain that Japan's colonial rule brought upon South Korea in the past, Koreans cannot help but take Japan's economic retaliation seriously. However, he emphasized on the need for people to stay objective.
과거 일본 제국주의로부터 큰 고통을 받았던 우리로서는 현재 벌어지고 있는 일본의 경제 보복을 매우 엄중한 일로 받아들이지 않을 수 없습니다. 그러나 일본의 경제 보복에 대한 우리의 대응은 감정적이어서는 안 됩니다. 결기를 가지되 냉정하면서 또 근본적인 대책까지 생각하는 긴 호흡을 가져야 합니다.
During a meeting with his top aides on Monday, President Moon said that South Korea's spirit remains unchanged in that it opposes hostile nationalism while aiming for equality and peaceful coexistence based on love for humanity. And for keeping that spirit, President Moon thanked the Korean people for their mature citizenship, which can be the key to bringing a better future for South Korea-Japan relations.
일본 정부의 부당한 경제 보복에 대해 결연하게 반대하면서도 양국 국민 간의 우호 관계를 훼손하지 않으려는 의연하고 대승적인 모습을 보여주고 있습니다. 양국 국민이 성숙한 시민의식을 바탕으로 민주 인권의 가치로 소통하고 인류애와 평화로 우위를 다진다면 한일 관계의 미래는 더욱 밝아질 것입니다.
President Moon added that the country's goal is not to be an economic powerhouse. He said South Korea will strive to create a global community based on peaceful cooperation, focusing on people and promoting the values of mankind. Park Ki-jun, Arirang News.
North Korea has officially described the latest missiles it launched on Saturday as, quote, a new weapons system whose tactical character is different from weapons system the regime has had before. Experts say these weapons resemble tactical missile systems used by the U.S. Army. Kim Yo-sun has more.
North Korea's state-run Korean Central News Agency released on Sunday photographs of the new weapons the regime tested a day earlier. The missile launched on August 10th from the North's northeastern city of Hamhung showed similar traits to the U.S. Army's tactical missile system known as ATACMS. They are also similar in that they can carry 2 missiles per launcher load. While the range of ATACMS is 300 kilometers, Pyongyang's new tactical weapon flew over 400 kilometers at an apogee of around 48 kilometers at a maximum speed of more than Mach 6.1.
Following the launch, Chairman Kim expressed great satisfaction that the new weapons have been successfully developed.
North Korea has now showcased 3 new weapons, including short-range ballistic missiles assessed to be KN-23, a modified version of a Russian Iskander missile, as well as what the regime described as a newly developed large-caliber multiple rocket launcher system.
North Korea is now capable of targeting major industrial facilities more precisely.
Experts say the development is part of the regime's efforts to shift its current liquid-fueled conventional missiles to solid-fuel engine missiles.
Solid-fuel missiles are more suitable for surprise attacks, and their launchers can store missiles for longer.
The launches are part of the regime's protest against the ongoing Seoul-Washington military drills, and it has signaled that more launches could follow until the drills wrap up on August 20th. Kim Yo-sun, Arirang News.
Now, back in June, after North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and U.S. President Donald Trump met at the DMZ, it seemed like working-level talks between the two sides would start again in a matter of weeks. That didn't happen, but there are signs the talks could start later this month. Cheshi Young has the latest.
U.S. President Donald Trump took to Twitter on Saturday to say that he's looking forward to seeing North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in the not-too-distant future. He said Kim sent him a letter and the North Korean leader wants to start the nuclearization talks once the joint South Korea-U.S. military drills known as Combined Command Post Training come to an end. Those exercises are scheduled to run through next Tuesday. This is why speculation is mounting over possible working-level talks taking place in late August. On the same day, a senior North Korean foreign ministry official in charge of U.S. affairs urged Washington to come to the talks with the right attitude. And they will meet directly, not through South Korea, as they did before when they met at the DMZ in June. At their last meeting, President Trump said working-level talks with North Korea would take place soon, but nothing has happened since. The U.S. aims to begin the talks by early September at the latest, just in time for the UN General Assembly slated for late September, so it opens the possibility for senior-level talks with North Korea on the sidelines of that meeting. If that happens, those talks could pave the way for a fourth leaders summit between North Korea and the U.S. However, an expert says even if the two sides are to start talks in the first place, they have some hurdles to overcome.
North Korea is likely to ask the US to agree to step-by-step denuclearization and an easing of sanctions. If the US rebuffs that proposal, North Korea will likely wait for another chance to hold talks around the end of the year.
Even if North Korea agrees to Washington's demands, it's unclear what the North will ask for in return and whether the two sides could meet for the fourth time this year. 최시영, Arirang News.
Now, switching gears, in Major League Baseball, the LA Dodgers Ryu Hyun-jin came off the injured list on Sunday to put in an impeccable performance that helped the Dodgers beat the Diamondbacks. Won Jung-hwan reports.
Back from a sore neck, the South Korean left-handed pitcher Hyunjin picked up right where he left off. Ryu strengthened his leading position in the race for his first Cy Young Award with 7 scoreless innings at Dodgers Stadium as the LA Dodgers beat the Arizona Diamondbacks by 9 runs to 3 on Sunday. Ryu held the Diamondbacks by throwing just over 90 pitches and getting 4 strikeouts. He was on the winning side for the 12th time this season and lowered his earned run average from 1.53 to 1.45. Ryu's ERA is beyond impressive. In fact, it is nearly a full run better than the next best pitcher in terms of ERA, Atlanta Braves' Mike Soroka, who ranks second with 2.32. Nobody else in Major League Baseball has an ERA below 2 this year besides this Korean monster, and he is currently on track for the 5th lowest earned run average in MLB history. Ryu is now in the form of his career, easily outpacing his previous best of 1.74 ERA and 11 wins. And many experts say Ryu's chances of becoming the first Asian athlete to win the Cy Young Award are looking very strong. Won Jung-hwan, Arirang News.
Over the last 2 decades, Arirang News has strived to bring you the latest and the most in-depth coverage of developments on the Korean Peninsula and in East Asia. Our reporter Oh Soo-young spoke to some opinion leaders abroad who are also regular Arirang News viewers on what they hope to see from us going forward. Take a look.
On its 20th anniversary, Arirang News spoke to regular contributors and observers from abroad on topics including politics and diplomacy, North Korea, as well as social issues, culture and sports.
Your channel is a very nice source for me on breaking developments and anything dealing with South Korean politics or inter-Korean relations or Northeast Asian regional politics. I enjoy interviews that you have with academics discussing these matters in depth. So it's a resource.
Arirang TV, of course, by interviewing Koreans, experts, government officials who are able to communicate in English, is able to provide a really useful service. Always important to know how Koreans see the world, but also an opportunity for non-Koreans to involve themselves and sharing their views about some of the big issues.
Observers say Arirang TV is acting as a crucial instrument of promoting awareness of not only Korean perspectives, but its many cultural assets.
Whenever I'm on a long-haul airline, I sometimes go for the Korean films because I like the genre, if you like, and the different. I've always thought the British sense of humour is similar to the Korean sense of humour. In a way, soft power is a phrase that is often used these days, particularly in terms of the music and the culture and the film and so on. That's very powerful expression of culture throughout the world.
Broadcasting globally since 1999, Arirang News now airs in 103 countries, reaching over 142 million households.
Anybody's 20th birthday is a significant thing, isn't it? Because it's almost a passage from being a young person to being a proper adult. And so you've laid the groundwork in those first 20 years, and I hope very much in the next 20 years you'll become even more established.
Congratulations to you. I think we're moving into a period where there are a lot of issues and a lot of opportunities. And
well done, Arirang TV. It's fantastic that after 20 years you're still going strong, and I wish you all the very best in the future.
Going forward, the contributors said they hope to see Arirang further expand and establish itself as a valuable, enriching network for viewers around the world. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
The South Korean government says it plans to drop Japan from its whitelist of countries that get preferential treatment on trade. For more on this developing story, we connect to our business correspondent, Kim Hae-sung. Hae-sung, can you tell us more about this move and what it means?
Devin, South Korea's trade ministry announced just 2 hours ago that it has decided to remove Japan from its 29-country whitelist of trade trusted partners that are given preferential treatment on trade. Minister of Trade, Industry and Energy Song Yun-mo said the government is revamping its trade whitelist to enhance the quality of export controls, alluding to a failure on Tokyo's part to uphold international principles in the management of its export controls on sensitive materials. Take a listen to what he said at the briefing.
We need to put an export control system in place given that it's hard to work closely with countries that continuously violate basic principles of export control or that run their systems inappropriately.
South Korea had placed export partners into two groups, those 29 whitelist countries in Group A and others, including China and North Korea, in Group B. But now Group A will be divided into two, A1 and A2, plus Group B, so a total of three groups. The Trade Ministry says Group A2 countries are signatories of four major international export control agreements, including the Wassenaar Arrangement, but run export control systems that go against the agreements. Japan will now fall into Group A2, and Group A2 will be under tighter export controls. Local Korean companies shipping to countries listed in A2 will have to submit 5 different documents instead of 3 for Group A2. The approval process will also take around 15 days, up from the current 5. But just to note, the changes won't go into effect immediately, but after a gathering of public opinion for 20 days, so sometime around September. South Korean government's announcement comes 10 days after Tokyo removed Seoul from its whitelist, making around 1,100 items vulnerable to stricter export curbs. But at the same time, the Trade Ministry added that Seoul is ready to discuss the issue anytime and anywhere with Japan upon its request during the opinion gathering process, leaving the door open for negotiations. Back to you, Devin.
All right, thank you for that. Kim Hae-sung reporting there. Now, the Moon administration, South Korea's exports for the first 10 days of this month, fell 22% on year to $11.5 billion. The Korea Customs Service says the drop was to do with weakening global demand and was led by semiconductors. Semiconductor products account for about a fifth of the country's total exports, and they plunged by more than a third. Shipments of petrochemical goods also fell by double digits. Exports to Korea's top 2 trading partners, China and the U.S., fell by 28% and 20% respectively, an effect in part of their trade war. South Korean tech giant Samsung Electronics has ranked second on the list of the companies with the most patents filed in the U.S., second only to IBM. LG Electronics was high on the list too, in 7th place. That's according to the Intellectual Property Owners Association, a civic group, in its list for 2018. And while Samsung has been number 2 for over a decade, over the same period, Japan went from having 6 companies in the top 10 to just 1. A U.S.-based expert has warned that Japan not making amends for its war crimes might also threaten the global economy. In a recent column for the Washington Post, Greg Brzezinski, professor of history and international affairs at George Washington University, said Japan's export curbs on South Korea have caused memory chip prices to spike and are having a chilling effect on the global tech market. He said Tokyo should reckon with its past wartime atrocities, including its sexual enslavement of Korean women, for a more peaceful and prosperous future. Unless Japan does more to reconcile with its neighbors, he said Asia will always be on the brink of another economic crisis. It's time now for an in-depth look at the global markets this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Dr. Hwang Se-eun, Research Fellow at the Korea Capital Market Institute. Dr. Hwang, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for inviting me today.
So we ended last week with Wall Street down a fair bit, the NASDAQ in particular. Korea, though, looks like it's starting out with decent gains this week. Take us through the markets today.
Stocks ended lower Friday as Wall Street concluded a wild week amid trade war fears and worries over the global economy. As President Trump has clearly moved from trade wars to currency wars, investors will need to incorporate intrinsic hedges to ride out market volatility and protect themselves from policy errors. Traders also kept a close eye on the bond market, where the recent appetite for U.S. debt has pushed a bond market recession indicator closer to a warning zone. If investors trigger a recession warning in the bond market, that tends to be negative for stock markets. Asian shares inched up Monday on China recovery and yuan fixing. Gains by Chinese equities and the yuan stronger than expected daily fixing helped lift a broad gauge of Asian shares above water. However, uncertainty over how the U.S.-China trade conflict will be resolved is still contributing to market volatility. Japan's Nikkei gained 0.44%, while South Korea's Kospi rose 0.23% today.
Yeah, gains on the Korean markets today, but last week the Kospi and the Kosdaq plunged. The Kospi below the 1900 level at one point. Where do you see Korean stocks going this week?
The Kospi and Kosdaq indexes, which showed a significant decline last week, are expected to have their adjustment period this week. The Kospi and Kosdaq indexes appear to be approaching the bottom at this point. I expect the bottom of Kospi and Kosdaq be between 1900 and 1950 and 550 and 600 respectively, considering the price-book value ratio for each market. This implies that the benchmark indexes could fall even more, but the magnitude of the decline is not likely to be significantly large. There have been a number of bad news in the stock market over the past few months, including escalation of the U.S.-China trade war and Japanese export restriction, along with declining domestic growth rate. It is less likely that the environment surrounding the stock market will further deteriorate for the time being. Investors will be able to observe modest price recovery for this week.
Got it. Now, this week, some important news due out of the U.S. and out of China, some numbers. What else should we be watching?
The news of the U.S.-China trade dispute and the direction of the value of the Chinese yuan will be the main price factors for this week. Stock markets are likely to fluctuate following news related to the U.S.-China trade talks scheduled for early September. investors will need to pay attention to the release of major economic indicators both in China and the United States. In the U.S., key economic indicators such as the consumer price index and the volume of retail sales in July will be released this week. Retail sales are expected to remain strong. According to the Wall Street Journal, July retail sales were expected to increase 0.3% on month-over-month basis. In China, the data on industrial production and retail sales in July will be released this week. If Chinese export growth meets or exceeds market expectations, the stock price recovery could become more clear.
All right, Dr. Wang, we'll be watching those numbers, but that's where we have to leave it for today. Thanks for coming on and sharing your insights.
Thank you very much.
Now, the Moon administration has tried a few things to cool down Korea's overheated housing market. Now it's announced a big new measure, a price ceiling system for apartments. Our Hong-Yu reports.
The Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport made the announcement on Monday morning following consultations between the government and ruling party. The newly adjusted price ceiling system on privately owned housing sites will be applied in October at the earliest. Currently, a price ceiling system which decides the personal price of apartments by adding a basic building cost set by the government only applies to public housing apartments. During the Roh Moo-hyun administration in the mid-2000s, such a system was applied to privately owned housing sites, but it ended up existing in name only as it was difficult to apply due to a contracting housing supply and a deterioration in apartment quality. On Monday, the government said it will be easing some of the prerequisites in applying the new system. Currently, regions where house prices have increased at twice the inflation rate during the previous 3 months have a price ceiling imposed on them. But with the reform, regions designated as speculation-prone zones will be given a price ceiling. The specific zones will be revealed when the finalized legislation is ready. Currently, the government designates older apartment blocks that are being renovated as apartments that require price ceilings at the stage of planning for distribution and management. This means the government cannot put price ceilings on such apartments that don't get a cap when people start buying the apartments. But with the reform, the price ceiling can be applied at the stage where residents are allowed to buy. To prevent side effects from the price cap measure, such as selling the apartment after the required maximum 4 years of resale prohibition to make capital gains, the government has expanded the prohibition period to a maximum of 10 years. With such reforms, the government expects to protect consumers from overpriced housing. Hong-Yu, Arirang News.
Now, the monsoon's officially over here in Korea, but it's still raining a lot, and that means you have to watch out on the roads. If it floods, you can really be in trouble. Our Park Se-young takes a closer look at what you can do to keep the water from hurting your car.
Driving on flooded roads comes with many dangers. Typhoons and rainstorms can cause damage to vehicles. To prevent damage, it's best to avoid driving in these conditions, and cars parked in low-lying areas should be moved in advance. Drivers should also try to avoid major areas of standing water or driving near bodies of water. When driving through flooded areas, drivers should maintain a slow and steady forward momentum. Once out of the water, drivers are advised to pump the brakes several times to dry them. If caught on a flooded road where waters are rising rapidly, get out of the car and move to higher ground. Once the water level rises, water pressure may stop doors from being opened, and when water levels reach the car's bumper, water can get sucked into the engine and destroy it.
Even if the car ahead passed through the flooded area, accidents can happen. And with the rising use of electronic components in cars, even a little water can stop their operation and require complete replacement.
Electric and hybrid cars also require special attention.
When water enters the power shut-off by the primary and secondary safety devices, you should not park in flood-prone areas.
Water damage is covered by full coverage insurance. However, compensation could be limited if either the windows or sunroof are open. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.